How was Earl Spence allowed to hold on to the IBF belt for years without defending his mandatory? He had that belt for years. Refused to fight Jaron Ennis, who told us for years he was going the IBF route. He was not interested in the WBO belt. This is why when he was ranked number 2 in the WBO, he didn't go the WBO route. Because when Virgil Ortiz turned down the WBO title shot versus Terence Crawford, not once, but twice, Parco Picarso, the WBO president, is on record admitting that Virgil Ortiz turned down that fight twice. So the next guy up was Jaron Ennis. Jaron and his team strategically maneuvered their way around the WBO. They went, as soon as they learned that Virgil Ortiz said he wasn't interested, the next guy up would have been Ennis. They maneuvered their way around a title shot, bro. How you lose a title shot to go fight for an interim belt? That makes no sense. This is why Crawford always talks about, you already had your shot to fight me, bro. You had your shot. Virgil Ortiz turned down the fight. All Jaron and his team had to do was put in a petition to fight Crawford, since the number one guy, Virgil Ortiz, didn't want it. That means the number 2 guy gets the opportunity to fight for the WBO belt. Ennis didn't want it. And I'm going to tell you guys why Ennis didn't want that WBO fight, to fight Crawford for the WBO belt. He felt like he wasn't going to get enough money. But fans refused to admit that. Ennis didn't fight Crawford because he felt like he wasn't going to get enough money. He knew going the IBF route. So it wasn't about becoming a champion. It was about the money. He knew going the IBF route. He knew there was a possibility he'd get a free belt because he heard behind the grapevine that Earl Spence was planning on moving up in weight anyway. He was going to get a free belt. And once he become a champion, he gets the opportunity to make more money if Crawford is still at 147, depending on the winner of the fight. He knew those belts was going to get vacant. He didn't want to risk taking an L to Crawford fighting for the WBO belt when he could have got a free belt. So his team strategically made that move to fight for an interim belt instead of a real belt. Yet fans are so deluded and confused when it comes to the sport of boxing. We hear these fans on the internet, Crawford's ducking Ennis, Crawford's ducking Ennis. But they fail to realize that Ennis' team strategically worked their way around the WBO. They had a shot to fight Crawford already. They worked their way around the WBO. Why would you fight for an interim belt when you could fight for the real belt? And some fans' argument is, well, why would I try to fight for one belt when I could fight for 3 belts? Well, check this out. Like I said before, that's a duck then. If you're admitting, why would you fight for 1 belt if you could fight for 3 belts? That means you literally are admitting to ducking Terence Crawford's smoke. Seriously, just sit down and think about it. If you're on record saying, why would I go fight for 1 belt when I could fight for 3 belts? Well, then that means you don't want to fight this guy. You're ducking him. That's a duck. So when Terence Crawford says Jaron Ennis already had his opportunity and he claimed he wanted to fight for 3 belts with Earl Spence, He ducked me to try to fight Errol Spence. You understand what I'm saying? And he knew, once again, he knew the possibility of fighting Errol Spence was slim. Because Errol Spence had that IBF belt for a long, long time. And never, and I mean never, once ever thought about giving Ennis a shot at the title. You know, he never thought about giving Ennis a shot at the title. And people never call Errol Spence Jr. a duck. They allow Errol Spence Jr. to duck Jaron Boots Ennis. I remember after every single Jaron Ennis fight, they were saying Jaron Ennis was calling out Errol Spence Jr. and the fans was like, "Oh, he's not ready for Earl. He's not ready for Earl. He should fight Crawford." What? He should fight the number one pound for pound fighter. But he's not interested himself. Fans were saying he should fight Crawford, then the winner fights Errol Spence. Right? But Jaron Ennis was saying the opposite. How quickly do boxing fans forget? You boxing fans, you Earl-sexuals, let me be exact. You were saying Jaron Ennis should fight Terence Crawford. The winner gets Errol Spence, which Crawford was okay with it, but Jaron Ennis wasn't. Jaron Ennis himself did multiple interviews where he says, "I am going the IBF route." Why do you fans continue to act like y'all forgot the man said that out of his mouth? He said, "I am going the IBF route. I want to position myself for the IBF belt." We heard Jaron Ennis say this for years, and boxing fans still neglect these facts. But now, they're claiming that Terence Crawford is ducking Jaron Ennis. When the man got stripped of his belt, and having a belt, he only had the belt for 2 months and he got stripped. Why didn't the IBF wait? Why didn't the IBF wait until Terence Crawford? Why didn't the IBF wait until Terence Crawford and Errol Spence fight was completely off the table? They knew that Crawford and Spence was still in negotiation for a second fight. All they had to do was wait a couple more months. You know why they didn't wait a couple months? Because Jaron Ennis had already put in a petition. He had already called the cops. He put in a petition because Errol Spence refused to fight him for years. I remember the IBF said Errol Spence has 120 days to fight Jaron Ennis after the Terence Crawford fight or after Jaron Ennis' last fight. And Errol Spence wasn't interested in ever fighting Jaron Ennis. And boxing fans try to ignore these facts. You understand what I'm saying? My thing is, you guys allow Errol Spence to avoid Ennis, and you allow Ennis to avoid Crawford. Crawford gets stripped of the belt because that petition was for Errol Spence Jr., and somehow you flip the narrative and you're calling Crawford a duck when Jaron Ennis is the real duck. He ducked Bud to try to fight Errol Spence, allegedly, because that's what he claimed. He won his IBF title shot, and the fight for 3 belts is better than fighting for 1 belt. That's what he claims, right? But I guarantee you, if we dig deeper through the grapevine, Jaron Ennis and his team knew they was never going to fight Errol Spence. So all along, they knew they were getting a free belt. He turned down his opportunity at fighting for a world title, the WBO title, because he probably felt the money wasn't right, or he just didn't want to take a loss to the number 1 pound for pound fighter in the world. Whichever way you want to spin it, because I've heard people say the reason why he didn't go that WBO route because he felt like he wasn't going to make enough money. So, you a contender, you more worry about the money than the belt, than being a champion and becoming a champion? This is what people are saying. They say, why would Jaron Ennis take the WBO option to fight Crawford when he wasn't going to make enough money to fight Crawford? How you wasn't going to make enough money? He's the number one pound for pound fighter. Your last fight, you made $125K versus Villa. I mean, boxing fans don't be making no sense when they talk about the sport. I mean, you people are all over the place. Let's just stick to the facts. The fact of the matter is, Jaron Ennis ducked Crawford when he was number 2 in the WBO rankings. And he's on record saying, I'm going to IBF route. There is no way we can go around that. It's from the man's own mouth. I'm going to IBF route. I'm going to IBF route. So Crawford has every right to say, this kid already ducked me. And there's another situation where Crawford even reached out to Ennis when Crawford signed that deal with BLK. And Ennis was like, why didn't you pick me? You picked David Avanesian. Well, after the David Avanesian fight, Crawford and BLK Prime reached out to Ennis. And Ennis, he said, no, I'm not fighting Crawford on BLK Prime. Now, how are you going to make demands if you're not the number one pound for pound fighter in the world? You're not a draw. Jaron Ennis tried to make demands that was literally impossible, meaning he didn't want to fight. He told Crawford, come fight on my network. You're a nobody at this time. How can you tell Bud to come fight on your network? Crawford said, come over here if you want a shot at the title, Ennis. Come fight on BLK Prime. I'll give you a shot at the title. Let's make it happen. Ennis refused to fight Crawford on BLK Prime. He says that was backstabbing Showtime and PBC. Dude, you're not loyal to Showtime and PBC. You should be an independent fighter. You don't owe Showtime and PBC loyalty. So you telling me Showtime and PBC want to step on your toes, take food from your mouth and your family plate? Showtime and PBC is going to refuse you from fighting for a world title and making the most money in your career. Is that what Ennis is saying? You want to tell the number one pound for pound fighter, I can't fight you because I'm loyal to Showtime and PBC? Do that make sense, y'all? Do that make sense? Those are two incidents that Jaron Ennis ducked Crawford. Knew he was going to get a free belt from Earl Spence Jr. I mean, it is what it is, man. My thing is, I'm upset at boxing fans, but it's expected because people forget so quickly. Like, why didn't y'all keep this energy for Earl Spence when Jaron Ennis said for years his goal was the IBF belt? Every interview, he never mentions the WBO. My goal is to position myself for the IBF belt. The IBF already said they're going to put in my petition. Jaron Ennis been telling us for years. I feel like y'all listen to the man interviews and ignore it. But y'all want to call Crawford a duck when he gets stripped 2 months with a belt that exchanged hand when the petition was put in before the fight? How quickly do boxing fans forget? The petition was put in before Crawford fought Spence. So the petition was initially put in for Earl Spence, who avoided Jaron Ennis for years. Jaron Ennis put in a petition for Earl Spence. When the belt switched hands, what the IBF should have did, they should have restarted the clock. You cannot apply a 120 days petition that was put in for Earl Spence to Terence Crawford and confuse the boxing public like Crawford is refusing to fight Ennis when Ennis already turned down a fight with Crawford. That's a crazy way to spin a narrative and disrespect the number one pound for pound fighter in the world. And boxing fans are so confused because nobody is giving it to him like this because they don't really follow the sport. They only show up when the fight is about to happen. They don't follow the drama. They don't listen to all the interviews. So they don't know what's going on in the sport of boxing. They ignorantly come on the internet and say, man, Jaron Ennis got Crawford's belt. How that happen? Because they're not educated on the sport. Once they become educated on the sport, they would have knew the only reason Jaron Ennis got that free belt is because he put in a petition before Crawford fought Spence. He called the cops. He put in a petition. He called the IBF. The IBF put in 120 days petition to fight Earl Spence Jr. But when the belt switched hands, they never revised that petition. They applied the same petition for Terence Bud Crawford, which makes no sense when the petition was initially for Earl Spence Jr. It's your boy, No Credit, I'm out.